Stay tuned for Truckers Life Radio, coming up next on tncradio.live.
This is Alec Debogorski, and you are listening to tncradio.live.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Hello and welcome to tncradio.live. This is Truckers Life Radio. And now here's your host, Ron Frazier.
Welcome to Truckers Life Radio on tncradio.live. If you're joining us for the first time, we want you to know the whole purpose of this radio program is to be able to help drivers on life's highway to maneuver through the various things that they deal with while they're on the road. We want you to know also that if you have a question or you want to tell us your story, we'd love to hear from you. So you can contact us at truckerslife@tncradio.live. Again, that is truckerslife@tncradio.live. On today's program, we're happy to have Shelli Conaway. Shelli is the founder and president of Truckers with Room to Spare. Shelli, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of this program.
Well, thank you for having us. We just love to be able to share our message with everyone.
That's so cool. Shelli, what I'd love you to do to start out with, because I'm sure there's just a boatload of people who know you in the trucking community, but there's probably some who do not. And we have people who are not necessarily in the trucking community listen to this program. Tell them a little bit about Shelli Conaway. Who are you? Tell us a little bit about your story, your life leading up to this time.
Well, I am a single mother of 3 grown daughters now, and I got into trucking 30 years ago to help raise my family. And it's given my family a good life, and I enjoy it. I pull flatbed. I have for the last 20 years. I work for a great husband and wife team out of Southern Indiana, DNC Transportation, Dawn and Charity Hatfield. They're great people to work for, and I've grew up all over the United States, so I've seen a lot of different things, even as a child growing up. So that's what kind of got me started in disaster relief.
Oh, that's so cool. Shelli, I've heard some of your story. Can you tell us a little bit about, what God has done to bring you through to get you to where you are today?
Well, it's one of those, you have those aha moments. And in 2018, I was sitting in Houston, and Hurricane Michael was coming in, and Facebook was really big, just everybody was getting cranked up on it. And of course, I'm watching everybody talking about the storm coming in, and I'm watching the need for supplies floating around. And then I'm seeing people saying that they're having to raise money to pay for transportation. And I'm like, really? We've lowered our industry to that. We can't help. And I'm like, okay, I see what they're needing. I hooked up with a lady that was close to the highway because the storm had just moved through and we didn't know how far into town I could make it. And I stopped at several truck stops between there and Louisiana and bought as much water and stuff that I could find and just stuck it on the empty spot on my trailer. I was barely loaded. And I met her on the side of the off-ramp and handed it off. And I thought, these people are trying to help others. And a community, a state, and areas, it shouldn't be determined how much help they receive by how much they can pay for transportation. Mm-hmm. This is something that we go into areas as truck drivers all the time, and we'll have 4 or 6 feet empty on our trailer that we could put in some for somebody that needs it. Or if, your company's charitable or you're feeling charitable, there's lots of times in getting ready for disasters that we have whole trailer loads. But, I couldn't see charging a church or a nonprofit group to transport something that one day I might need it. One of my family members might be affected by a disaster, and I would want another driver to do the same for them.
Well, that's a great heart. Shelli, talk to us a little bit about, truckers with room to spare. We understand what you do, but how do you make all this happen? How do you find the drivers and key the loads and, get this to work in a way that you're meeting that need in the community? Are you driving, the other question I have for you is, are your drivers going out of the way to do this? Or is this on a typical run? How do you fit it all together, Shelli?
That's the hard part. I have people call me, and I have organizations that already know about us. They'll submit through our website a request for a shipment. And usually they call me also and let me know whether this is something that is a gigantic need or if we got time, if something else was more pressing. I keep a list in the truck with me all the time when we have loads. We try to network. We ask other drivers that have worked with us to tell other drivers about us because, not everyone's online. Not everyone's on social media. And we do our best to go to events like MATS and stuff to bring awareness to our organization. But we have an email list. We send out lists through email and text to drivers that are maybe operating in certain areas. We don't ask anyone unless they want to go out of their way. And we never ask anyone to break a seal. That's just not the way the supply chain works. But if they are available and they do have room, then we match them up with the organization where the supplies are, or if it was a food drive, where the items are. And I arrange to have everything loaded by the volunteers. And then I arrange everything on the other end for them to have it unloaded. And the organizations are extremely aware of how important a driver's time is. And that these guys are doing this out of the goodness of their heart. And you can't really leave them sitting. So they're real conscious of that. And they're extremely appreciative of anything that we can do. Me and I have other volunteers that help, Della Hoover, Colleen Goodrich, and others that help with trying to recruit drivers, raising awareness of the organization and our mission. So that recruitment is a big thing for us because the more drivers we have, the more chance we have of somebody being in an area that we need them.
Shelli, you talked about how you recruit the volunteers. Let's back up for a minute. How did you get started in the trucking industry? What got you behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler? I know you need to feed your family, you need to care for them, but why trucking?
My dad was a driver, and my ex-husband at the time was a driver. So it just kind of all fit into place. I knew the money that could be made, and my mother lived with me, so she helped with that, and I went out and did what I had to do. I was fortunate enough I was on a dedicated run at first while the kids were little, so I could be home every weekend with them. But yeah, it was out of necessity, but I'm still in it because I love it.
I keep hearing that over and over and over again. So that's so neat that you're not just doing it because you have to, but you're doing it because you love to. Shelli, what were some of the struggles you faced in launching Truckers with Room to Spare? What were some of the difficulties you started out with?
Starting out is our biggest struggle is still a struggle to this day, is networking and getting, bringing more drivers in. That's a struggle we've had from the very beginning, and we still continue to have it. Our next struggle would be we have purchased a truck. We're trying to purchase other equipment. Finances is always a second, but our biggest resource and our biggest need is our drivers.
Do you see an overall lack of drivers in the industry? I mean, that's been the heart cry out there, but is it a lack of drivers or is it something else?
I don't think it's a lack of drivers. There's a lot of drivers that have expressed interest that they want to help. But a lot of them don't own their own equipment. A lot of them drive for a company, and the companies don't have interest in humanitarian efforts, which is a lot of the big problem.
Why do you see that? I mean, I would think companies would jump on the bandwagon to do something to better the situation for people who've gone through a disaster. Why do they not have that humanitarian mindset? Is it because it's a profit thing, a greed thing? They don't want their drivers taking time. What do you see?
I think a lot of it has to do with profit. I really do. And I understand fuel prices are up. Everything's up right now. But there's some things that are more important than money.
You're absolutely right. And sadly, that's true, not only in the trucking industry, but it's difficult to find people who want to give and to support the needs of people who are going through disasters. And they're more common now than they've been in years. And I know that we have worked a little bit with the Midwestern Food Bank and Midwest Food Bank, and they're constantly trying to find ways to get goods out to people because they just don't have the drivers to drive their trucks. So
we're constantly trying to find goods, drivers, trucks, everything.
It's a challenge. I get that. Yes. Well, Shelli, we got to go to break here, and we want to pick this up when we come back. You have such a wonderful cause that we want to talk a little more about that. But first of all, we need to go to break. So we will do that, and we'll invite our listeners to stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Don't forget, you can hear all of our TNC Radio primetime shows again on our podcasts. Just go to tncradio.live/podcasts or search for tncradio.live wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. You know, after 36 years of being licensed as a psychologist, I've figured that the number one thing that people do when they're upset is avoid. Humans are infamous for avoiding things, and they avoid anything that's unpleasant or uncomfortable. You could see this from the very beginning of life all the way to the end of life. For instance, if you took a newborn baby and you blow in the baby's face, the baby will blink and the baby will turn her little head. I know because I tried this. I'm blowing in the child and I'm saying, this is for science. but she would blink and turn her head because it's unpleasant, so she tried to avoid it. Likewise, you can take an elderly man on the last day of his life and bring him into a room, and he'll complain that it's cold. He might want to leave the room, or he might want a sweater, because humans will do what they can to avoid discomfort. Okay, so now that we know that, what do we do with avoidance? There's a simple rule that says face everything that's uncomfortable to you, especially if it's going to bring about growth. Now that's easier said than done, but this is where it's important to have support and partnership and encouragement, and to make goals and to make steps to get to the goals. But the bottom line is it's important to face and not avoid, because that's how we succeed and that's how we grow.
Be sure to listen to Building Strong Minds with Dr. Chris, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, right here on tncradio.live.
Welcome back to Truckers Life Radio. We're here with Shelli Conaway, who is with Truckers with Room to Spare. And if you're a driver out there, I sincerely hope you're listening to this, and maybe in your heart, you'd be willing to answer the call for the drivers that are needed to help those who are struggling because of a disaster that has happened in their community. We encourage you to be part of something Shelli has developed and created. And we'll talk a little bit more in just a short period of time here, how you can get a hold of Shelli. But Shelli, we want to talk about the idea that, you know, the culture of the trucking industry is changing so that more drivers are just so busy. They're so out there trying to just keep schedule. Do you see that changing in the future? Do you see where drivers will be able to, I hate to say slow down, but be able to take a breath and say, hey, we want to find ways to minister to the community as well. What's your take on that?
I would hope so. I want to say yes, but I don't see it in the aspect of the companies and their profit margin mission. They're not going to allow their drivers to slow down. If the companies realize the benefits, because I get contacted a lot by businesses that know that we come into their area after a disaster and supported their employees. And they call me and go, hey, I've got this load, but I want to use one of your drivers. It's a paying load. Who do you recommend? You know, these companies remember who comes to help them, and they want to pay it forward. And if we had more companies, that were involved in this, it may help them pick up new customers and help their bottom line. And it's also a tax deduction. So by allowing their drivers to give back, not only are they improving their company image, networking with new potential companies, but also receiving a tax deduction.
Shelli, do the drivers who do this, who take in resources, supplies to a disaster region, do they have to have a special license? Do they have to are they going to be let in? Tell us a little bit about the process.
Well, everything is cleared before we get there. The organizations that we're bringing into notify local emergency management, or I talk to emergency management to advise them that we're coming in. So there's no problems on that end. There's no special licensing, but if the driver is going to take advantage of any hours of service exemptions or weight exemptions or anything like that, he is the driver's provided with a copy of the declaration that for that disaster, as well as any signage that the driver will need for his equipment to show it as a disaster relief shipment. But other than that, just it's being aware of your surroundings. You are going into a disaster area. Sometimes the roads aren't cleared. You have low branches, low power lines, debris in the road. There are times that we are given escorts in if an area is not cleared or they see a danger for the truck. They'll give us a police escort in because, there's no road signs. They're all gone sometimes.
Yeah.
So the driver just needs a little bit extra help.
Shelli, what is the percentage of professional drivers who are involved with this ministry now, say, compared to, 5 or 10 years ago?
I say we have more. We probably have 25% more now than we had in 2019. We have a couple of companies that have stepped up and recognized the help that's needed. But what I have found is that a lot of drivers don't think about helping unless their family's in that position. I had a gentleman one time after Hurricane Laura. He says, why are you doing this? Why aren't you helping drivers? And I'm like, sir, how many truck drivers do you think live in the state of Louisiana? How many of their families do you think live in the state of Louisiana? We are helping drivers, just in a roundabout way. We're helping everyone. And that's the thing is, there's a lot of organizations out there that are geared strictly to the driver. And they're great organizations. And I understand, there's a lot of drivers that have problems with helping outside of the industry. But by us helping a community or an area, we're also helping the drivers that live in that area.
Yeah. And I think what's true too, Shelli, is, the general public, not the professional driver, but the general public who's riding down the road, who has just a terrible misconception of what the driver is behind, the guy behind the wheel, they don't think a whole lot of them, and the ability for a driver to help the community really raises the bar on how people view the professional driver. It's sad as to, how most people see the professional driver and don't have a clue that there are so many of them out there who are helping the community. During the pandemic, so many of them sacrificed time with family and being home in order to provide supplies to the community. And yet we don't recognize that. So I'm really appreciative of what you're doing, because you're not only helping the drivers in those disaster areas, you're not only helping the people in the community, but you're raising the level, you're raising the bar for how people view the professional driver. And that's something we've tried to do and are trying to do to help the drivers gain more respect.
Right. And that interaction as a driver myself is sometimes that interaction with the people that, and all drivers, you don't have to do this. My boss is gracious enough. I go into a disaster area. I haul a load in, but I will stay down there and haul from like warehouses into the disaster zone. If people want to do that, so be it. We need more, but it's one of those, just the interactions with the victims and them seeing, you and learning about you and talking to you, and you're not a horrible person that's driving an 80,000 pound missile, You're a grandparent, you're a mom, you're a dad, you care about them as if, you would want them to return the favor to your family. And a lot of areas do. You see wildfires, farmers come together and help each other and pay it forward and pay it back in hay and feed and stuff like that. And this is the same thing.
Shelli, has the number of disaster or ministry opportunities increased for you over the last 2 years?
Yes, a lot. Mostly because we're more aware of a lot of the disasters. We're starting to be contacted by a lot more organizations. That and just the magnitude, it's not one tornado anymore. It's like 10 in an area, which makes it a larger impact area. So much like Western Kentucky, in December, I think they counted 50 tornadoes that touched down that in a 24-hour period in that region. So, I mean, there's a lot more disasters, and every time there's a disaster, we connect with a new organization. So,
and I would assume, and again, we've got to go to break, but I would assume that you're gaining visibility, that your organization is become more visible, that your organization, people are beginning to understand what it is you do. The professional drivers are beginning to understand the importance of what you do. And so that in itself, even though the increase in disasters and situations where resources are needed, you should prayerfully, we're hoping that your driver base increases as well. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. We need to go to break, so stay tuned.
Do you have the TNCRadio.live app? It's free and easy to download. Just go to app.tncradio.live, Google Play, or the App Store. Get access to live streaming radio developed by drivers for drivers. Download the TNCRadio.live app today.
As a professional driver, the engineers at Front Lane know that you remain focused on the road regardless of weather and traffic conditions. That's not always true of the drivers behind you. Every 9 minutes, another commercial vehicle is rear-ended by a driver failing to control their speed. And guess who gets the blame? When you have to brake quickly, Tailbone illuminates a series of bright red LED lights that allow the driver behind you to react up to 50% faster. Using amazing accelerometer technology and a battery that will last for years, Tailbone meets the standard set by the NHTSA and the FMCSA. Learn more by visiting www.frontlane.com/tailbone. That's www.frontlane.com/tailbone. Approved in all 50 states, it's Tailbone by Front Lane.
You're listening to TNCRadio.live. Remember to tune in to the Truckers Network radio show with Shelli Johnson weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
Hey, welcome back to Truckers Life Radio on TNCRadio.live. We're here with Shelli Conaway, who is the founder of Truckers with Room to Spare. Shelli, you've talked about how your ministry is working with areas of need, but what I want to ask you about is, truck stops are changing and the trucking industry is struggling to put drivers on the road. So much of that is due to the pandemic, but have you found the pandemic to have had an impact on your efforts to do what you're trying to do?
Yes, anytime there's anything that impacts the industry, it kind of impacts us because we are just another leg of the supply chain. A lot of resources that would generally go for disaster was donated to help people during the pandemic. So our donations, as far as our goods, our supplies that we take in, are down, as well as our financial donations are down. And with less drivers that's involved, it makes it more difficult. And it takes just a little more time to get a shipment moved, which in a life-threatening situation isn't good.
So, okay, you've got a disaster hits. Obviously, the supply chain still is not what it should be or could be. How do you find your resources?
Basically, drivers that we've worked with previously or have signed up to help. We have partnered with a lot of different organizations to try to collect supplies. And a lot of organizations have their own supplies that has been donated either through a food drive or a supply drive, and they just need help with transportation. And those aspects, it takes the pressure off of us because we don't have to look for stuff to take in. But we're always, on the lookout, trying to form partnerships with companies and such that can help us as far as taking the needed stuff in.
Shelli, what kind of companies are there? For our listening audience, you might have an owner out there of a company or a trucking company or whatever. What kind of companies are you partnering with that are able to meet this need?
Any truck driver, not so much tanker unless I did have a request last year for a water tank, a truck driver that would let them use a tank to hold water for showers. If it holds freight, we can find something. I pull flatbed, I pull Conestoga, and I actually hauled a refrigerated load like 50 miles into a disaster area. So it doesn't matter what you got, we can use it. There's a large demand right now for open deck to haul hay into farmers that have been affected by the fires in Nebraska. I'm also looking for partnerships with companies that manufacture food, shelf-stable food, drinks, things like tarps, hygiene products, gloves, gardening supplies, shovels, and whatnot. These are all things that are needed after a disaster, as well as building supply manufacturers to help with long-term recovery.
It's interesting. You said about hauling hay for the animals. I happened to be at a truck stop, and a guy just had just a ton of hay on his truck. And I said to him, "Where are you going with all the hay?" And he said, "I'm going to help the farmers." And I thought, how cool. That was his destination. He had loaded this thing up. He knew that there was a need for a feed for the animals because of the fires. And he was taking his truck and he was headed out. And so that's a neat thing to see and hear. Shelli, talk to me a little bit about, do you see the efforts, your efforts and the organization's efforts bringing more attention to the needs of the people you serve? Do you see you having an impact, I guess is what I'm asking you.
Every truckload is an impact. What we're hoping is that when a driver goes into these areas to load and unload, 9 times out of 10, every driver I've talked to said that they weren't, the people wouldn't let them sit in their trucks, would not let them be antisocial, that they have been told how happy they were there and thanking the driver. And I'm hoping what I want is for this interaction to show everyone that we're all the same. That we're not hateful, we're not mean, we're not trying to run them out of the road. And maybe this also gives drivers a chance to interact and maybe educate a little bit while they're there about the dangers, which is what I try to do. You know, I go in, I have kids that ask questions, and that's our next generation of truck drivers. So I try to answer their questions and show them, you know, no offense, I'm a woman pulling a flatbed. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
You know, we used to, TFC Global used to host truck rallies, and we would have a truck parade, and these trucks would line up, and we would see, Shelli, just hundreds of people line the road because there is a great love for the trucking community. There's a real desire to be supportive of what our drivers do, you know, and we saw a little of that with the People's Convoy that we had the opportunity to be involved in, and to see hundreds and hundreds of people show up to bring support to the trucking community and to the professional drivers. And so as your guys go into these communities, they have a great opportunity. They have an opportunity, as you said, to educate the public as to what it's like to be a professional driver, and to show them that you really care. And I love what you said. We're all the same. We're grandparents, we're moms, we're dads. You know, there's no difference. It's just the type of work we do that defines us a little differently. But
you know, people don't really get to talk to us. We're always moving.
Yeah.
This, you know, you get to stop for a little while and people get to interact and get to actually meet a driver.
And I think too, Shelli, that's probably good for the drivers, because they are so isolated, so alone on the road, that to do something where they can also have some interaction, that's good for their health. That's good for them overall.
And not to mention, it feels pretty darn good getting all those hugs.
Yeah, I bet it does, and especially from the kids. You know, to know that these young people or the families, they've lost it all. And so what you're bringing them is a glimmer of hope. And, you know, you've got a real ministry there, a real opportunity to reach out and show the good of mankind to humanity. And so that's exciting. Well, Shelli, we're going to go to break here, but when we come back, we want to talk a little bit about what you see for the future of your organization. And we want to talk about how people who have been listening to this program can get involved with what you're doing, and how they can make contact with you and have some interaction and be part of what's going on. So we'll go to break, and we will be right back.
Trucking Moves America Forward, or TMAF, is boosting the image of the industry by telling the story of trucking, and your story can be part of it. Upload a photo, tell us what you love about trucking, or send us a story about a good deed or charitable act in trucking. Be sure to follow us on social media and contact us through truckingmovesamerica.com. That's truckingmovesamerica.com.
You're listening to Truckers Life Radio on TNCRadio.live.
Hey drivers, did you hear music on TNCRadio.live that you really liked? Or maybe you heard us interview an author of a book you'd like to read or listen to. You can get the books, music, and other products you hear about by going to our website at www.tncradio.live and clicking on the shopping cart.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. According to some polls, 1 out of 3 human beings describe themselves as chronic worriers. That is, you could walk up to them any time of the day and say, "What are you worried about?" And they'll tell you, because if they're awake, they're worrying. Why do people worry? And what do we get from worry? that so many people worry chronically? Well, worry is pseudo-control. It helps us to feel like we're controlling something that we otherwise are powerless over. Let me tell you a true story. A young man leaves on Thanksgiving weekend to head back to his university in Pittsburgh. His mother in Florida states, "Son, I don't want you to go. The weather is terrible outside. Please don't leave." And the son smiles and says, "Mom, the plane's taking off. They're going to go with or without me." So before the son leaves, the mother says, "Honey, do me one favor at least. When you land in Pittsburgh, call me." He says, "Sure, Mom." So for the next 3.5 hours, this poor woman is pacing the house. She puts on the Weather Channel and she watches a giant H take over the screen. And she doesn't know what she's watching, and she shuts that off. And she has a drink of wine and maybe a second glass, and then she says, "What am I doing, getting drunk while my poor son is crashing to death?" She tries to lay down and sleep, but then she tells herself the same thing, that this is not a good thing for her to do if her poor son is flying in terrible weather. She prays to God and she says, "Lord, take this from me." And then 5 minutes later, she says, "Lord, give me that back." She needs to worry because it helps her feel like she has some control. Hours later, the phone rings and she answers the phone and she says, "Hello, hello." And her son says, "Mom, I just want you to know I made it." And she says, "Oh, I did it. I did it." Somehow in the mind of a worrier is the belief that my actions of worrying tend to bring positive outcomes. So you know what she's going to do the next time there's a flight in inclement weather? She's going to worry again. Do you want to know what the antidote is for worrying? Tune in to the next Mental Health Minute.
Be sure to listen to Building Strong Minds with Dr. Chris, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, right here on tncradio.live.
Welcome back to Truckers Life Radio on tncradio.live. Shelli, we've been talking about your organization. We've been talking about what's taking place and how you have been involved in this for, since 2019, I take it. Shelli, tell me, what do you see for in the future for truckers with room to spare? What do you see as what's the future look like? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, we have located some warehouse space, and I'm hoping to acquire the funds to lock that down so we have storage area to be able to store more supplies. I'm always hoping for more drivers, but we are also looking for equipment. We have a truck. I'm hoping that God brings us more trucks and more trailers, because for the drivers that have retired that still have their CDLs, or the drivers that work for companies that won't allow them to drive their truck, we would like to have equipment that these drivers could use to help still. And a program we're working on now, truck drivers are usually the first to the scene of an accident or a disaster on the highway, much like an ice storm. We're the ones that are stuck out there with the cars, and a lot of these people in cars don't know how to survive a night in their vehicle. We're developing a program now that we're partnering with drivers that are willing to carry a backpack in their truck that they can hand off to a family that's in distress, on the highway, that would have basic needs like food, a blanket, a light source, something like that, to help them get through the night if they're stranded in a backup. Or if the driver is willing, we're working with the Red Cross now to develop a program for drivers for basic first aid and CPR training so that we would be able to help in the event of an accident until emergency responders arrive.
That is so cool. Where'd you get the idea of the backpack, Shelli?
Well, let's see. I was stuck in snowstorms twice last year. And it's one of those, you sit here and you look at the cars around you and you're like, these people were not prepared for this. You know, they talk about it all the time on TV, telling people, you know, you need to carry these things in your car. But when you look at a car full of little kids and you're going, they ain't got anything in there to eat. You're in the bunk tossing your truck, trying to find something to hand off to these little kids. You know, I'm a mother. I know. And, you know, us drivers, we got a soft spot for kids. And I thought, you know, maybe I can get drivers to do this. You know, we would have packs for the summertime that might have more water than winter stuff, and packs for the wintertime, just depending on what it would be. And that way they can help people that are stranded.
You know, I saw a news clip of a driver who was stranded in the snow, and he actually took what he had to eat and gave it to the people in the car. And that spoke to my heart, you know, and so this idea is amazing. I think this is great. And I hope that this catches on. I hope there's others who will see the benefit of this and come alongside this type of idea, because you're absolutely right. And our professional drivers drive across the country. So they see it, they're aware of what's going on in the field, and they're the best avenue to help these drivers who get stuck. Shelli, I want to talk for a minute. You know, we've got drivers and company owners who listen to this program. If there's drivers and company owners who are listening now and they want to get involved with your organization, how do they do that? How do they contact you? How do they network with you? And in a time of disaster, when they go, I remember something I want to be part of, how do they do that?
Well, it's really easy. Our website is truckswithroom2spare.org. My name is Shelli. I'm the president. You can reach me at 866-303-0388, or my cell phone number is 606-240-8263. Or you can email me, Shelli with an I, SHELLI at truckswithroom.org.
And Shelli, also, you mentioned that you have some warehouse space or you're trying to get some warehouse space and more equipment. Let's say we've got somebody out there that wants to donate to your organization. How do they do that?
Well, on our website, there's a link at the top that they can donate, monetarily through that link. If they want to donate equipment or warehouse space or something like that, please send me an email or call me direct, or send me, there's a contact us form on our website that will come to us, and I will call you back personally to discuss your gift to help our organization.
Shelli, I want to take this last few minutes that we have, and I want you to talk directly to the professional drivers who are out there and to the company owners. And I want you to, for lack of a better term, make a plea. What would you say to these folks? And how would you encourage them to be involved?
Okay. I would like people to realize we are a 501. We are a nonprofit. We work off donations. There's no one that pulls a paycheck here. Unless I'm driving a truck, I'm not making any money, and nobody here is. We're all volunteers. And I would never ask anyone to do something that I wouldn't do or the owner of the company that I work for hasn't done. Think of this. Your local church comes to you and says, we want to support this disaster. Can you transport this for us? Would you charge them? There's some companies out there that would. Or would you do the right thing and give up a little bit of your time and your equipment to be able to help them? We collect donations to reimburse or to help fuel the trucks to take the burden off of the companies and the drivers. Mudflap donated $10,000 last year to help with diesel costs. So if your drivers or your company has a problem paying for diesel to do this, we can help. We try to make this as painless as possible, but you won't regret it. It's the best feeling in the world to pull up and you see kids that have nothing, and you know somewhere in that trailer there's a toy. And I've done it. I've went in and I know there's going to be kids there, and I'll stop by a dollar store and I'll buy coloring books and crayons and just keep them in the cab. Because we all know how it goes. You're a parent. You've just lost everything. Your house is gone. Your number one worry is, where am I going to put my family? How am I going to feed my family? And yeah, we just like to try to help.
Good. Well, Shelli, we've been privileged to have you here on our show. And we're praying for you, praying for your organization, praying for your ministry. And I will tell the drivers out there, you've heard it. You've been challenged. We encourage you to get involved with Shelli and with Truckers with Room to Spare. No excuses, gang. We've got an opportunity to minister to the community. It's getting so it's almost on a regular basis. And so we challenge you to pick up the banner and to get involved and help change lives and help mend and heal families. You can do it. You have the trucks to do it. And what's the statement you will make by doing that can just do nothing but bring joy to the hearts of families who are just struggling with total loss. So that's our challenge to you. Shelli, I want to pray for you real quick. Can we do that?
Yes, sir.
Father, we thank you for the opportunity we've had to be with Shelli. We just pray that you will use this ministry to glorify your name. We pray for drivers and the needed resources that she's asked for. And Father, we just ask that you would bless this ministry beyond anything we could imagine. Father, you are Jehovah Jireh, the supplier of all our needs. We thank you for what you're going to do even before you do it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the show. Let us hear from you. Send email to truckerslife@tncradio.live. Stay tuned.
Don't forget, you can hear all of our TNC Radio primetime shows again on our podcasts. Just go to tncradio.live/podcasts or search for tncradio.live wherever you listen to podcasts.